Tracer's biggest strength is the fact that nobody knows how to exploit her weaknesses. If you have one person on your team that does though, then the Tracer on the enemy team no longer becomes a big problem. Let's make you the person on your team that can shut down the enemy Tracer. So here in today's video, we're going to find all of Tracer's weaknesses and teach you how to exploit them, whether it be with a certain hero pick, a certain team comp, a certain positioning strategy. All of these things are ways you can counter Tracer that we're going to cover today. The first weakness most Tracers have, especially if they're one tricks, especially if they're Tracer mains, is their ego. And it sounds weird, but this is definitely a real way to deal with the enemy Tracer. Let me give you a scenario. The enemy Tracer is seriously stomping on you guys. She is single-handedly carrying their team, and if you can deal with her, you know you can win the game. How do you deal with the Tracer? Well, heroes like Hanzo and McCree can deal with a Tracer. A good Hanzo and a good McCree should be able to shut them down, but if you're not proficient on these heroes that counter Tracer, trying to switch to one of them to counter them isn't going to work. If you're not a McCree player, if you're not a Hanzo player, switching to these heroes to deal with the Tracer is not going to go well for you. The Tracer will probably outplay you, but there is a better way. There's one hero you can play against Tracer that will counter the enemy Tracer even if you're terrible at her, and that hero is Tracer. What? Am I crazy? Lonehawk, did you just say you can be a bad Tracer and counter the enemy Tracer even if she's miles ahead of you in skill? Yes, I did. The SR system tries to give you even games, and if the enemy Tracer is stomping on you, that means a lot of the SR held by the enemy team is held by that Tracer. If you can take her out of the fight, your team should be able to deal with the rest of their team because she's the one carrying. So what you need to do is use yourself, hopefully, you've at least played Tracer once, as Tracer to take the enemy Tracer out of the fight by simply baiting them into trying to win a 1v1 against you when you're not really 1v1ing. You need to set up a scenario against the enemy Tracer where there's no way she can kill you. You always have an escape route planned. You always have a health pack nearby, or your recall is ready. And what you need to do when all of these things are in place is somewhat engage on the enemy Tracer. Pretend like you're challenging her to a 1v1. Start shooting at her. Actually make it legit. Maybe actually try to skirmish her at the beginning of a fight. When it starts to go south, and you should expect it to go south if the enemy Tracer is really good, that's when you back up and get out of there. But you don't just hightail it right away. You slowly hightail it. You really need to bait the enemy Tracer into thinking she can kill you. Make her waste as much time as possible. As many blinks, as many recalls if you can shoot her enough, as many resources as she has on you. Because in theory, if your team's SR is even and the enemy team's SR is skewed because the Tracer is bringing it up a bunch, you 1v1ing the Tracer, removing both of you from the main fight, means the rest of your team should be skilled enough to win it. So that's what I'm saying when I say abuse the enemy Tracer's ego. They're going to want to win that 1v1. They're going to want to assert dominance. And, some Tracers might pick up on this and start shooting at your teammates, and that's when you maybe try a different strategy, but a lot of them won't. A lot of them you'll be able to easily waste their time and easily make them feel like they're doing something as they chase you down, because they might eventually kill you. But if your team has won the main fight and that Tracer kills you, you've done your job because your team has won the main fight. And that Tracer might even start to get tilted and frustrated. That Tracer's probably thinking, hey, I'm killing this guy every single fight. What's going on? Why is my team not winning? This Tracer is way worse than me. I keep getting the kills. What are you guys doing? That can cause, problems in the enemy team and can help you even more than you thought. That was kind of a method of dealing with the enemy Tracer on your own. Either play a hero that counters her or match her Tracer and waste her time. There are some better ways to do it though. However, they all require lots of communication. So we're gonna have to talk about those a little more in depth. One of Tracer's biggest strengths is her ability to abuse enemy low mobility heroes. Those being your Annas, your Zenyatas, maybe even your Reinhardts, your Roadhogs, Zarya, the list goes on and on. When you don't deal with a Tracer properly, these heroes are either just constantly respawning after Tracer murders them, or just simply charging Tracer's ultimate, so every big team fight, she's got a pulse bomb right on your backline. Neither of which are good, so let's talk about how to deal with the Tracer that preys on your immobile heroes. Firstly, your supports. I'm sure we've all been in a game where you're not receiving any heals and you can't figure out why. And it seems like your healers are just dead at the beginning of every fight. And you find out that it's due to a Tracer. A large majority of players, I'm talking like everybody below even Masters, I'd say Diamond players even do this. A large majority of players spend way too much time shooting at the enemy team and looking at the enemy team and spend not enough time paying attention to what situation their healers are in. Healers are the key to winning fights. There's a reason healers become the target for like every flanker in the game, as well as snipers, as well as every DPS when they're exposed. So protecting yours is going to be the first way to deal with Tracer. How do you do that? Well, it's actually quite simple. There's a few things you can do. The most obvious is switch out your immobile healers for mobile ones, those being Lucio and Mercy. Both of these heroes have escape mechanisms that can really take the heat off of them when an enemy Tracer is all over them. Sometimes, though, your comp might not require having a Lucio Mercy, the two mobile heroes in the game. So what should you do then? Well, if the enemy team has an exceptional Tracer, one of them should probably be on Lucio, or at least Mercy. And the reason is, Lucio provides an escape for his teammates as well as himself. He's got a speed boost, he can ride on walls as well, and he can boot people away from not only him, but your other healer. It doesn't work exceptionally on Tracer because she'll blink back into place, but you're wasting a crucial blink, and if your team then can capitalize on that, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, that one blink less is going to cost her life. So having a Lucio can really take the heat off of both healers. And if you're running a Lucio Mercy, Tracer's going to have a very hard time one-clipping you guys. She's just not going to be able to do it, and she's going to have a very hard time distracting you and keeping you out of the fight. This being said, there will still be Tracers that can kill these supports. Maybe your supports aren't good at the heroes they're playing, or the enemy Tracer is just that good. Or you're not even running these supports. You might just be running two immobile ones, like Ana Zenyatta. What do you do to protect your supports then? Well, in this scenario, we're going to talk about how to abuse Tracer's poor timings, or force Tracer into engaging at the wrong times for her team. Tracer doesn't stand a chance of being useful in the fight if more than two people come after her, especially if she's used some blinks to engage on your team. The key here is going to be tactically backing away from the enemy team when your Tracer engages. And this requires teamwork, but if you get in comms, I'm confident you can do it. An example of this would be, alright, we see the Tracer, let's wait for her and her team to engage. If she engages too early, you simply collapse on her, and the fight is now a 6v5, or the enemy team has to back off. If they engage together, you need to force the Tracer into a bad situation. How do you do this? Well, you have to disengage from the enemy team and engage on the Tracer very rapidly. This requires a few things. One is a successful way to disengage from the enemy team. If you all turn around to deal with the Tracer, and the enemy team is still there shooting at you, the fight's not going to go well for you. You need some frontline tanks that can tank the damage, a corner to hide behind or some cover, or something that like a speed boost from Lucio that will allow you to divert your attention to the Tracer and also protect you from the main part of the enemy team. If you can do this, you can then deal with the Tracer and then move on to the enemy team to finish off the fight. This is the ideal communication way to deal with Tracer. Let's talk about a budget version of this, which doesn't require nearly as much communication and can once again be done kind of on your own. This method involves picking a hero that for one can kill Tracer or run her off, scare her off, whatever. And two, it requires you to be moving back and forth between your team's front line and your team's back line. Heroes I like using for this include McCree and actually Sombra if your team is competent, because a Sombra can hack the Tracer while she's shooting at your supports and then ruin her life because she's stuck and she cannot blink away or recall. But, you know, Sombra's a little bit harder. Let's talk about McCree as well as Hanzo, two heroes that can deal with the Tracer very well if you know how to play them. A good McCree should be dealing damage to the enemy team. no doubt. But if you position yourself in a way where you are easily able to access your supports, namely your Anas, your Zenyatas, because they're the two most vulnerable here, and they communicate to you when the Tracer is coming, a simple turn and a flashbang, or just even a few shots, is enough to scare the Tracer off. Make sure you don't throw out your flashbang too early. As Hanzo, make sure you don't throw out your scatter too early, because Tracer's going to try to bait those out. If you're holding on to those, and the Tracer knows that, they're going to do everything they can to try to get you to waste them and miss them. And when you miss those abilities, that's when they're going to engage full on to you or your supports or the rest of your team. Holding on, baiting out the Tracer, waiting, and making them, overstep their boundaries is going to be very useful for your team, for your supports, and it can really help you out a lot. Little tidbit of info as McCree, similar to how Roadhog can melee to make it look like he's about to throw his hook, McCree can melee and almost make it look like he's about to throw his flashbang. Punching versus throwing, not too different, and you can actually waste so many of Tracer's blinks just by punching the air. Even if you're not close to her, just by punching, she'll think you're throwing their flashbang and she'll blink away. And eventually even, she might start getting used to this and not blinking, and that's when you can actually start throwing your flashbang, because she won't be able to tell the difference unless she's focusing too hard. These little mental games can help you immensely. On certain areas where you may not be able to perform some of these strategies, having someone like a Torbjorn or a Soldier 76 on your team can help deal with the Tracer as well, simply because of the damage output they can put onto her. Torbjorn's turret doesn't deal a very high DPS, but it doesn't miss, and Tracer can really suffer against that, especially if the Torbjorn is watching his turret and it's in a well-placed position. Soldier 76 is similar. He doesn't actually land as many shots, but the shots he does land, because it's such a high rate of fire, are going to deal a lot of damage to Tracer and kind of make her life a little more miserable than it needs to be. You just have to worry as both of these heroes, because Tracer can usually win the 1v1 if she's exceptional. She can definitely 1v1 Torbjorn without his turret. She cannot 1v1 Soldier 76 if he has his Helix Rocket and his heals, but a good Tracer will try to bait out your healing and then disengage and re-engage when you don't have it, similar to what they're going to do with your Helix Rockets. So make sure you don't get those baited out on you. Make sure you're the one that's baiting out their blinks and they're not baiting out your abilities, forcing you to miss. Tell me what you guys think of these tips for dealing with Tracer in today's video. Hopefully this helps you out, given that Tracer has become such a power pick. Actually, no, she's been a power pick forever. Been saying that forever, guys. Nothing new has changed here. But anyway, hopefully you guys did find something useful. I'll see you guys all later. Check out one of my other videos. Have a good one. Lone Hawk out.